Two vascular surgeons walk into a bar and come out with a podcast. We are talking everything vascular and not. Welcome to the Life of Flow podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Life of Flow podcast. Today, we talked to one of my co-residents back at Temple, David Hindin, who is now Associate Chair of Innovation at Stanford. He did way better than I did. And he's Assistant Director of Stanford's Biodesign Faculty Fellowship. Plus, on top of that, just to make us feel even that we've done even less, he's also has several companies. One of them is Alter Ego, which helps doctors and other professionals build their social media presence. So we had a super interesting conversation. David is an amazing person, and we're very lucky to have him.
Very, very cool, dude. Very good conversation. Hope you all enjoy.
The following podcast is not relating to my teachings and work at Del Cedar Medical Center and is for entertainment purposes only. Hello, everyone. Hi, David. How's it going?
Great. How are you?
Good. Man, it's good to see you in face since we were residents.
It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
So is this the first time y'all see each other since you left the program?
Yeah. We talked on the phone a little while ago, but we didn't do a video call or anything, I don't think.
No. Yeah.
So this is the first time we see each other since we were in residency.
Take me back. This is year what?
You left when, what year?
My chief year was 2018 to 2019, and then I've been out in California ever since.
But you were already
But you had
out.
gone.
You had
gone to California during residency, or no? Am I mistaken?
Oh, you've got a great memory. So during my lab time, I had my 2 research years.
Yeah.
And as like a spin-off side project that was probably kickstarted my whole little parallel journey, I started a YouTube series, like traveling around to different places to show like who was doing what kind of innovation training. And so you're right. I came out to California. I came to Stanford, visited Biodesign, and did some filming back then. But I was mostly in Philadelphia during my research time.
Yeah. So I left 16.
So you were 2 years ahead of him.
Yeah.
But you were doing general surgery.
General surgery.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, David, a lot of people from the past have said Lucas was a douchebag in residency. Do you remember him? And could you also echo everybody else's sentiment about him, or no?
The answer is yes.
Lucas was a class act. He was a great guy to work with.
So politically correct. Thanks, David.
This one
right on cue.
This is
right
one,
on cue.
This is one I love. He was very unique.
Yeah.
So
that's what my mom says.
All right, so let's go this with this biodesign thing, because it seems like you already were, taking your first steps already in the middle of residency when you got that little break. And so tell me about that. Like, what is this whole side thing you've developed? I know you have a lot probably to share about your medical surgical trauma training, but if you don't mind, I think today would be great to delve a little bit more into that side hustle.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always had this belief, and it started with sort of noticing in myself, but then talking to colleagues that in medicine, and especially in surgery, we've got this kind of other part of ourselves that is this creative part that kind of needs to be doing creative stuff to really feel fulfilled. And for me, in residency, I was kind of like a plant without water, like that part of me. So like you're operating, you're like spending a ton of time in the hospital. It's like a very rich environment, like from the learning how to be a doctor part, but all these other parts that make you, or that made me, are kind of sort of left to sort of wither out on the side. And so I think for me, what brought me to biodesign, honestly, was like trying to figure out what else was out there. And I didn't, the way I found out it existed was just Googling around. But I think biodesign serves a really, really interesting role in the world in general, because it lets you as a surgeon or anyone who comes through biodesign, any clinician or engineer, connect with those creative parts of yourself, but learn how to do it in a structured way that is reproducible, rather than just being like, oh, I think I'm going to invent this thing, or I think we should build that thing.
Tell me a little bit more about what biodesign is. And, our audiences and myself, I have no idea what it is.
Oh, sure. So biodesign is a program at Stanford it doesn't live within a formal department. Like it's not within the medical school or within the engineering school, but it's a freestanding building that now has a series of courses, fellowships, classes that they run. And so at Stanford, it cuts all the way from the college sophomore level all the way through the grad student level. And they also have faculty programs, which is what I'm running now. But essentially, it's a structured program for developing innovation. And so it's a program that sort of teaches you how to find out what needs are out there in medicine, typically, and then how to figure out among all of these needs, which ones have the best chance of succeeding, and then take that through the process of invention, of creating some IP that you can protect, of developing a product, and then understanding all the stakeholders and the best way to move it out into the market.
So do you do only the education? Is this just a stepping stone to guide you in the right direction? Or are you guys already, in a way, trying to weed out some really good ideas and potentially get some equity and help these people produce it?
Yeah, no, this is a great question because there are, look, anyone who's ever used a Zeo patch has used a biodesign project that's out there in the wild now, and that's a multi-billion-dollar company. Shockwave, there lots of. It's a very good question to be thinking about equity at the beginning. In order to keep it sort of a protected, pure learning environment, anyone who's involved in teaching at Biodesign agrees that they won't take any equity for at least, I think it's 2 years after a company sort of gets out of the program. And so when we're working with students and fellows that are in the program, it's purely in a teaching basis. Even if that involves sort of brainstorming sessions, it all belongs to the students. And that's not true everywhere for other programs that are similar. So it's great that you're calling that out.
Yeah, I was about to say I was at Baylor College of Medicine for a while.
Yes.
And one of the things that I hated with capital H was that they had this
Baylor
program.
X. Was it called Baylor X?
I forget what the name was. They had some snappy name for it, but it essentially was to lure smart people in to share their ideas while they're teaching them. But at the end of the day, they were taking your idea.
Yeah.
And you were not
Shout
able.
out to Baylor.
Yeah, no, you would be really screwed with your IP. They would essentially own a significant portion of it. And I guess for somebody, I'd say very illiterate and inexperienced in medical tech, I guess could benefit from that structure and give away maybe their first good idea. But I would not advise you to do this, at any point in life. If you're super serious or you think you have a really good idea, you have to be very cautious about who you share it with. And the thought
100%.
that you guys don't get your teeth in it at the beginning, I think that's very remarkable.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it was thoughtfully designed when they created it. I will say that anyone at Stanford who joins a student faculty who steps onto campus signs, I think it's called the SU-18 form, basically assigning your IP that you create within Stanford to the university. But that's standard, and that's also, it's kind of helpful because they want you to have technology that succeeds. And so when the time comes, you kind of license it back out from them. And all these companies who've passed through Biodesign and become big successes have done it that way. If I invent something like on Stanford faculty right now, if I invent something in this room with my resources, that's different. But if you're using the 3D printer on campus, you're, working with people on campus, then you still sign it in the beginning to them. But yeah, I think what you're saying is true. And I think it prevents having this sort of culture of suspicion where you're trying to sort of keep your best ideas to yourself. And totally.
Is this for faculty or people that are in Stanford for some
your
way?
Program is only for Stanford faculty, or can somebody apply from a different place?
It's different programs all under the Biodesign umbrella. So when I came to Stanford, I did they call it the Innovation Fellowship, and that was a year-long program that people from wherever come to. And that was my only Stanford affiliation when I was in the fellowship, was that as a fellow. The program that I'm doing right now, so I'm the assistant director of they call it the Faculty Fellowship. That's for Stanford faculty. But also under the umbrella, we have, they call it the GFITs for Global Faculty and Training. And that's for people anywhere in the US or anywhere outside the US. And that's designed to sort of train you in the biodesign method so that you can then go create innovation programs at your own institution. And so there are different ways of engaging with this sort of department, program, whatever you call it, but they don't all require you to be at Stanford.
Do you have to be on site for these
Some
trainings,
of
or are
them.
there remote stuff that I could do from home?
Yeah, it's a great question. So GFITs are mostly remote, and then there's a part of the year where they come out for a few weeks. I don't want to misquote the exact amount, but for the majority of that year, they're at their home institution doing their home thing.
But is it for people that are only in academia, or designed for people that are in academia, or is it for people that are? Yeah, Miguel has his own private practice, but he is a very innovative person. Would it benefit him?
I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, but I think it's beneficial for anyone, because I think, look, Miguel might want to start up his own accelerator. You know what I mean? You might say, look, I'm going to stay firmly in private practice. I have no interest in kind of moving, but I kind of want to build a thing out here that is bigger than just myself, or something like that. So I think there's lots of benefit for really anyone who has an interest.
I would love the notion of having, and I'm sure there are, I just haven't really researched, but a private incubator or accelerator for physicians that is outside of the realm of an academic practice, and where there could be less strings and more networking, if you may.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really think here's my biggest pet peeve with a lot of the devices that we have is they are made by engineers. And listen, I have this love and hate relationship with engineers. They're so smart, but they are so unpractical. And so they'll come up with a device and they'll put a button, and ergonomically it just doesn't make any sense, or conceptually speaking, it just doesn't make sense. But as physicians, we're out there every day and we know what our problems are and we know what our hiccups are. And it's the smallest things is what makes great companies.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be
that's something.
something extreme, but I just feel ultimately physicians don't have. I've talked to at least 20 in the last 10 years that have come to me as like, hey, I've got this great idea. I drew it on a napkin on a call day, but I have no idea what to do with it. And there's a need for doctors, but it can't be too taxing, because nobody as a physician mid-career is going to step out of their practice and go and spend a year. Like, I mean, sabbaticals are a European thing. It's just not an American thing. People won't do that. But that makes sense. I mean, this could be a great answer to that. I don't know. I just
Going back to the engineering part. Yeah, I don't have as much experience as you, but I've had some talks with engineers, and I think there is something about how something feels in your hand
yeah.
that can totally make or break it.
Yeah.
And it's like because there's so many products out there that do a lot of the same thing, and you try to explain that to them. It's not. This has to feel good in my hand. I have to be able to have tactile feedback from this, and their eyes just are like glazed over. They're like, don't understand they're speaking like Chinese. Anyways.
Yeah, no, this is a great example, Lucas, because there are so many ways that these sort of structured programs can help with this whole process. So like what you're describing right now is, like, we think of a polished product, that's a product, right? And we think of a prototype as kind of like a maybe like less fancy version of that polished device. But we think of it in terms of, like, you have a looks like, a feels like, and a works like, and those are each different types of prototypes. And so like a feels like prototype that you want to communicate with your engineer could literally be like duct tape together a couple pieces of expo pens for the dry board to say, look, I want the handle to be about this size. or like we have a whole wall of expired surgical instruments like right outside Biodesign that people grab so they can like chop off the different functional components just to have a way of sharing a common language for communicating. And what you're describing is such a great example because it's really hard to get someone else inside your head, and sometimes you don't need to spend $10 million to get to the viable thing to be able to give someone sort of like a key insight so that they can understand what they're building a little bit better.
What are the are there, what's kind of the overarching course? Could you give a highlights of, well, we do product design, and then we do we train you a little bit on, I don't know, forming the company. We then train you on the marketing, or what is the components of, like, from where to where does it go?
Yeah. So we uniformly have basically the same process that's sort of compressed or expanded depending which program it is. So like the innovation fellows that have an entire year, full-time Biodesign have a different, amount of distribution that they have. But all of the programs begin in needs finding. And so we instruct people how to sort of go out into the medical environment, and there's really nothing fancy to it. It's just trying to get yourself out of your normal mindset for us as surgeons to sort of notice things that are happening around us. It's a little bit harder for us because we don't realize what we're blind to sometimes. And so one of the rules that my co-directors and I have for the faculty fellowship is you have to do some of that clinical immersion outside of your area of expertise. But all the programs start with needs finding, and you basically get your arms around 50, 100, 200 different observations of sort of problems that you see out in the wild. I can give you some examples of these. One of my teammates from my Biodesign year is very deeply involved in he's CEO of this startup that we spun out from our project. And it's for a neurostim device that sits on your head and stimulates hearing instead of a cochlear implant, which has to drill into the cochlea and shatter the bone and basically make people 100% deaf, people who are maybe living their life with 10% hearing. And the observation out there in the wild that sort of inspired that whole device was that our team would be signed up to see a cochlear implant surgery, and it would be canceled the day of by the patient. And this happened 1, 2, 3 times. And so that was the only observation. It wasn't even in the clinical environment. But then they started digging, and they found, well, it's because patients don't want to go deaf. And we hadn't thought of this because we thought, aren't they deaf already, or isn't there an amount of lack of hearing already? And so that was the surface level observation that we all discovered and kept kind of going deeper. So to get back to your question, it starts with needs finding, which is basically observations. And then the next part of the process that everybody does in biodesign is they filter their needs. And so what makes a good need or a bad need depends on who you are and what your priorities are. So we've had pediatric surgeons who they set their priorities to be a different market size than you both might be looking at. So we might be wanting to look only at massive markets. People in peds might want to say, we'll cap our market at 100,000 because that might be a massive market for their patient population. So once you decide what your filters are, what your priorities are, you take all of the needs that you've had and you pass them through your filters, and you basically rank each of these needs based on how they scored. And then out the other end, you have this kind of cream of the crop that's made it through. And I could pause there, but then we sort of get to the brainstorming, the inventing phase, and then we start getting out to those later phases where you're building something and talking about your business model.
So you do get all the way to the end of it?
We get all the way to the end of it, but I would say the end of it is kind of like cracking open the door that people who then take these companies forward spend the next 3, 5, 10 years stepping through and working on. So
do you have any projects that have made it really, really successful that you're allowed to tell us that were part of the design?
You said
Sure.
Shockwave, no?
Yeah, the shock. I mean, I have this slide that I keep updating whenever I give talks about biodesign, because it's like a mosaic of all the companies. And it used to be 40 or 50 companies, and now it's like over 100 companies that have sort of
That's
survived
amazing.
initial contact with the market and sort of have either gotten acquired or they're sort of out there. It's really neat. And it's because it's not just getting struck by a lightning bolt and having an idea and then being like, I'm going to do this thing. It's getting struck by a lightning bolt and noticing something, but then forcing yourself to push it through the process. Like, you can come up with a great invention that solves a clinical problem and get brute force behind you and get a ton of money, and then realize when it's finally time to go start selling into hospitals that your stakeholders aren't aligned, that like your product will take away someone else's lunch, or some major institution's lunch, and all of a sudden like you can't get it to where it needs to go. So we really believe that kind of going through the process prevents that from happening and prevents a lot of these failure points.
I'm drooling at the thought of
doing
being
something.
No,
You
no,
should
no, 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 no. Of being him in the,
yeah.
or being somebody within that program, because I just feel. Here's the two ways that I see an investment. Whenever I've put a little bit of money in a company, there's two things that I look at. One is this product something I believe in? Do I
Mhm.
understand the need? Do I understand the market? Right? If you come and you say a cochlear implant, I'm gonna be like, I'm done. Right? I
Yeah.
don't know anything about that, so
Yeah.
I don't invest. But if you say, hey, there's a laser based, new age intravascular lithotripsy balloon, I understand the need, I understand the market. That's where I'm going to put my potential money behind. But the second, and probably second and as important, not less important, is the founder.
Mhm.
So I want to know who is behind the project, and I want to know them in person. I want to see how they work, and I could have envisioned seeing how they evolve through a program. An incredibly good way to determine this gal or this guy or these them, whatever they look like they're going to be phenomenal at this. And I love this character.
Mhm.
I would, but then here's the deal. I don't, are you legally allowed at the end of a course to say, I want to invest in that as a private?
Yeah, you just said no, right? 2 years.
No.
Yeah, the best answer is not
the
yet.
question was, do you exchange your education for an equity deal
Oh, okay.
for the biodesign company? And the
Yeah.
answer was no. This question
Mhm.
is different. As a teacher, as a faculty,
Can you angel
seeing these
invest?
people saying, this guy is the next Uber, and I'm going to 100x. So I'm going to go and put $25,000 in his company today because he's nothing, but he's going to make that into $25 million someday.
Mhm.
So are you allowed to? Maybe yes or not. I don't just know what the
Probably
legal
not.
ramifications are.
We have a time limit. So the short answer is eventually yes. After I should know this. It's either 1 year or 2 years. I have to check. But before that, no. You can't give someone a $10 million check after graduation. We just the day after. We do have an angel investing group. So I actually co-founded a group. We call it 4i Ventures, but basically it's a group designed to support biodesign companies that are in that sort of early gulf of funding when they don't quite have enough gas behind them to get things going. But one of our basic requirements is that they have to be out of the fellowship for more than a year. I think it's a year actually, because that's one of our requirements. So before a year, you can't invest, even if they've graduated. You're not exchanging your education. You're just saying, I want to invest in you like an old-fashioned investor. We still make everybody wait a year because we feel kind of keeps the relationship more pure that way.
Yeah.
Do you accept international medical graduates?
Yes.
Like even if
Yeah.
they haven't done their ECFMGs or any of that, like if I'm a physician in Mexico, I can come and be in this for a year program or whatever.
We have a growing proportion of non-US fellows who are based all around the world. I don't know what that number is this year, but I know the current cohort of fellows who graduated had 3, 4. There are 12 fellows each year, and a significant proportion of them were international this year, meaning based somewhere else than the U.S. Forgetting about USMLEs and all that stuff, which is totally separate from biodesign. We don't. It doesn't matter what someone has done because it's not a medical training program. So we've had a lawyer come through the program in the past. We have engineers who've zero medical training. So it's more that they want to make sure that someone is sort of appropriate for the environment and sort of for med tech.
All right, let's shift a little bit. You have another very cool venture, which is kind of helping physicians build their brand online, build their, talk to us a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, I think I should say that CJ is my interest in this stuff. It made one of the platform, either TikTok or Instagram, show me some of CJ's videos, and that's
Yeah.
how I discovered you guys. She was
Oh,
saying,
really?
yeah,
Oh,
she was saying something
interesting.
about one of your podcasts, or maybe I don't even know how it came about, but she indicated that she knows who you are, Lucas.
Yeah, she knows you well.
And I guess the short way to answer like how this came to be an interest of mine is that I mentioned at the beginning, I always felt this sort of itch that I wanted to scratch on my own, or this sort of part of me that felt unfulfilled within the traditional medicine pathway. That I just felt like a big part of me is sort of engaging that creative part of my soul. And I was not getting that from medicine. And what led me to want to step into this space with other doctors was seeing people's reactions when they heard, first when I was still finishing up at Temple, when they heard that I was going to be doing this, the most common reaction from surgeons of our generation was, oh my gosh, like I wish I could do something like that, or I wish I had known about that. And that still is the reaction that I get. Now that I make lots of video and I put video online, I found folks often come up to me to ask, hey, can I pick your brain? Can I ask you how to make video, how to get started? And so I think we're kind of sitting on like a mountain of doctors who really want to get into this space, but maybe don't know how. And then you combine that with the fact that there are all sorts of concerns that everyone has with sort of putting their stuff out in social. But I think in medicine, we often feel too much of that concern that, I should check with my institution, or I want to start an XYZ account, but I have to make sure it's okay. You don't have to make sure it's okay unless you're going out there and sort of saying bad things by name about the institution you work for. I strongly believe it's nobody's business whether you have a personal brand online or not. So anyway, that's what led me to start getting interested in this space.
Lucas tries to make himself more relevant by adding a disclosure slide at the top of every one of the podcasts, which I told him I thought was absolutely useless. And the institution...
I'm just following
Do you
Huberman's
think
lead,
you're
bro.
that's what I'm saying is
Yeah.
I think he's trying to make himself look cooler.
No, I'm just like trying to not get fired.
My thoughts are mine, and this disclosure is
that necessary? Do I
No,
need
it's not necessary.
Well, let's ask the expert.
He just
You're
said
just
it
winging
no
it.
idea.
Yeah, I'm just covering my ass.
I have strong beliefs which have nothing to do with any legal knowledge, but again, as like the layperson who's not a lawyer, I kind of believe that unless you're saying something that could be held to sort of reflect your institution, that it's kind of your business. And it's not like you guys are giving medical advice on here or saying, your doctor should do XYZ. So yeah. But I've noticed that disclaimer that you have, and I thought it was because like a lawyer told you to. So I was like, oh, okay.
No, I just like I saw Huberman.
Cool.
No, I don't. I think actually it's horrible. I don't want to re-record it because I look like idiotic.
I thought you looked really good.
But I just think that these institutions have big pockets with lawyers on retainer, and they can just drown you out in like they can just say, okay, you're fired, and then you have to sue them. You have to spend like 50,000, 100,000 on lawyers. And I'm like, okay, let me just put this little fucking blip in here so that hopefully I can avoid that. Probably I can't,
Yeah,
because
I'm
if they
sure
want to
that's
fire me, they'll probably fire me anyways. But yeah,
foolproof.
yeah,
We
hey,
can do whatever we
but
can now because that thing is on the top of the
well,
show.
I don't know. Who knows?
Anyway, so
let's ask ChatGPT.
what have you in this? The company's called Alter Ego, correct?
Yes, yeah. There's no website. I don't use any social handles for it. I should probably make a website eventually, but it's basically a process where I work with doctors and clients who are interested in building out a personal brand. And for some people, that means developing a system and sort of figuring out like how to film content. For like, here's an example. Some surgeons film every surgery, especially surgeons that work with scopes, because a lot of the equipment film stuff. There are accounts where surgeons may have millions and millions of followers. There's one person, I don't want to call them out by name, but one person I'm thinking of who has tens of thousands on Instagram and a few million on TikTok, which are essentially just 30-second clips of endoscopy procedures with 90s rock and roll over it. And you know,
That's it. There's nothing else. That's it.
Nothing else. And so
like there's no opinion. There's no nothing. It's
on this particular account, and that's not
like
what
it's like a poop in the colon, and it says "Let's rock and roll."
something like that. Yeah.
You can do it with like, I don't know, some Costa Rican
that's
music.
brilliant. I think that's brilliant because sometimes you just overthink it, right?
Yeah.
It's the overthinking. Yeah. I mean, so that's not, what I recommend is here's the content that you're going to put out there and you should only do stuff like this. I think that's a great example because there's all this like, oh, what do I do? What gear do I need? What equipment should I get? Like, what should I say? Like literally if those are the table stakes to get something out there, then just imagine like where you could go if you just opened up CapCut, green screened yourself talking for 30 seconds over that, just pointing at what's happening on screen, maybe, injecting a little bit of your personality into it and putting that out in the world. And so I think there's this like huge ocean of possibility that doctors are sitting on that I've noticed they would often like to take advantage of and just sort of feel paralyzed.
Now, so is this more of a coaching thing, or do you offer also the services that need to be in place in order for this personal brand to be built, i.e. Web page design, i.e. TikTok and account management, XYZ?
Right now it's both, minus the web page. So it's everything from what you would consider from a normal consulting model where you meet with someone, you say, let me sit over your shoulder virtually, but let me see what you have, or let's talk and develop a strategy. And then you go out there in the wild and do it. And we'll keep doing this to, let's start with that. But you can send us the content and we will send you back edited content ready to post. We haven't yet stepped into the taking over people's handles and posting for them. Because frankly, that's psychologically a more challenging archetype, I think, to work with. I like people who are still bought in enough that they are willing to at least click post and interact with the audience. Because once you step back that third step and you're posting for them and then you're interacting, that's just a different model. That's like what a practice might hire. That's like a full-on social media manager, which is a very important role, but not the role that I'm interested in taking us just yet.
I think
building out some.
You'll inevitably get there.
I
think so.
think there's going to be a hunger for it. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Because I can just see it through my eyes as if you're helping me and I'm doing my part of giving you organic content, most of us, I think, I don't know, maybe maybe not, but I would think most of us are too busy with medicine to be thinking about all this time that I have to invest in posting and liking and maybe interacting at some level with people. I just know it just seems like such a lift.
And I think for me, it's like I am such like a social idiot in a sense that, because remember that idea that I had about a meme? I had this idea.
It was terrible.
It was super funny, but I was immediately going to get like canceled from society because I had no clue what I was referring to, because I don't
It sounds
watch
like a
TV.
great idea, actually.
I don't watch
I'm
TV.
intrigued.
Yeah, it was like, you know, this show about like autistic people dating on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
What's it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had
I would like you to stop.
there was this clip.
Oh God.
So I didn't know
I think
this.
I have a lot of objections to that show
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah.
Ethically, I am surprised it made it out into Netflix.
I did
Yeah.
not know, because I don't have a Netflix account. So I have no idea. I just see this clip and it's funny, and I just think, oh, that is a situation. I'm not going to mention a situation because I'll get fired. That is a situation
See,
that
that
I
should
feel
fire
like
you from
I hear
this.
laughter in the background.
No, you're good. You've
that-
got a disclosure at the top of the show. You're
that-
fine, man.
that is a situation that I feel like I am the observer of that person on a regular basis in my work. And I'm like, oh, that's really funny. Let's post this. And I say that, and like my social media person goes ahead and does it. And I think, oh, this is hilarious. And then somebody mentions, oh, you know that this is about people that are autistic. And I'm like, wait, what? Okay, don't post this. But anyways, that would happen to me frequently if I posted. So I stay away from that. Yeah.
Well, much as I did not want us to go into this particular show's territory, I do think you are you're highlighting another kind of item in the list of needs, or sort of skills that I think any doctor should be looking for, which is someone that kind of like understands enough about medicine to have their back, and not sort of allow material to get out there that will cause a problem for you. Similar to, you know, when I've worked with startups and companies and social before, it's a different comfort level depending who the audience is and who's posting it. So I thought you were going to say you wanted to post it and this person said no, and that was going to be like the process in this case worked.
No, we were this
sounds a little
close. We're this close to disaster.
Yeah. I think this is highly valuable, and I'm sure you're already successful, but I could see more success coming from it, just because the one thing that irks me when I've ever in the past tried to reach out to somebody for this thing is nobody has a background in medicine. And
Yeah.
so this one thing that somehow absolves these idiots from everything is they say, well, I'm not a doctor, so, you know, you're going to have to help me with that. No, I'm hiring you to help me with that. And so them saying I'm uncomfortable because that's a big deal is these creative people are uncomfortable with medicine because they don't understand it. They feel like they're going to F it up. They feel like they're going to be maybe unethical or something's wrong. And so then their creativeness is halted. And then on top of that, I'm hiring you, I'm paying you, and somehow I'm the quality control master of this too. So, you know, and so I've the few times I'm going to do it, I end up not doing it because I don't want to waste more time trying to build a brand when I'm the one that's actually doing quality control, and the people that have to be creative aren't being creative because they feel that they can't be creative with medicine. So I think this, as long as you're able, and this is probably going to be one of your limiting factors if you haven't thought about it, is if you have enough clients that you're going to have too many, then you're going to need more doctors to be supervisory of this, or at least some degree of providers, right? Some people, you know, if that is APPs, right? Is it going to be a PA? Is it going to be an MP or somebody that could help, that has that creative brain power? Because you're going to be limited by how much time you have to take clients on.
Yeah.
That's going to be a huge limiting factor for the growth of the company.
Yeah. I've intentionally kept it small in the beginning for that exact reason, because you get into new challenges when you start scaling and reproducing yourself and hiring other staff to sort of do some of those things that you're doing. And I will just say, I think in general, the role is to help doctors make content and be engaging, and that the hitting the brakes part of the piece is like 2% of it, because I think doctors are already doing too much of that to themselves. And so I think almost having permission to remove those filters is the biggest leverage. I mean, the reason I got excited when you started to say that you had an idea that was going to get you canceled is because that sounds great. Like a spicy take that's not really unprofessional. It can be fantastic. So I think in general, taking those filters away is better. But you're certainly right. I think having an adult in the room and sort of knowing that adult in the room sort of gets it because they're a practicing doctor also is a real asset. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what has been probably the top, let's say, top 3 things that physicians have to work through as you're coaching them in this? They call you, they say, I want to work on my personal image, branding, what have not. And again, I do think that you do a lot of coaching. It seems like it's a lot of coaching, direction, guidance, with the added value of adding some of the edits and stuff, but it's not become anything more than that. So it's probably pretty strong on the coaching side. What are 3 things that we're doing that we're not really comfortable with, or that we don't do really well, that you have to help them maneuver?
Yeah. It's always all these things. It's the psychological blocks first. It's the sort of getting over the hurdle of like really committing to this and feeling comfortable with it. And look, it's like they say, making a list about all the things that you have to do is not doing the thing. Telling people about doing the thing is not doing the thing. Like all these things, and sort of getting someone mentally over all of those humps to actually do the thing is, I'd say, number 1 on the list of those items. Number 2 and 3 are the easier items to tackle, the logistics of like, what equipment do I need? What gear do I need? There's a whole lot of paralysis. For the most part, you can buy a cheap $15 Bluetooth mic off of TikTok and like immediately have 1,000 times better sound than you get from your phone. You can flip your phone in reverse so that you're using like, the rear screen instead of your front facing cameras, and already have more than enough image quality than you need. And you can, sit by a window, or you can buy a light for a couple $100, and immediately you're looking at sort of studio quality video. And so all the kind of paralysis of feeling intimidated by all the gear is the next easiest thing to do. And then finally, it's sort of helping people understand content formats that work for them and that can give them some quick wins. I'll also say we're developing a course so that some of this can be self-paced, because we've noticed that one of the hurdles can be time frame, literally just for scheduling conversations where people don't have regular hours. And so there has been a desire that I've noticed for people to be able to go through some of the material on their own.
That's awesome.
So in CJ's words, cringe mountain.
Yes.
Get out there.
Cringe mountain. Yeah.
Right? Be able to feel enough confidence to just put yourself out there.
Yeah.
For me, a big part of it is the discipline. I think discipline equals success in social media and in your brand overall. I think it's what gets me. I haven't created enough spaces of protected time in my week. Like almost like I think I should, like Mondays from 8 to 9, just 1 hour, and Wednesdays from 7 to 8 or 7:30 to 8, maybe 30 minutes. Like you just have to do something and post something and do something and post something and do something and post something. And it's just like that. And then sometimes I feel like I run out of ideas.
Yeah.
Like I sometimes which is dumb because
we have like
for hours
an
about
hour
whatever,
each week of content that we post that you can repurpose in multiple ways. We have quite a bit of content.
We do create that, but I don't know. I just feel like sometimes I'm like, again, back to the problem with the marketing team. They're like, doctor, 10 videos this month. And I'm there like, the diabetic foot. Here's 3 things you need to know. And then like the next day I'm like, well, fuck, now I talked about, okay, varicose veins.
Why don't you tell them to pull stuff from the podcast?
I don't know that because we don't direct this to patients. I'm talking about our patient thing.
Well, some of it might be. I don't know.
Editorial ideas are something that are. I'm just saying what I think is.
Yeah.
I may be a very different user than who normally comes to him, but for me, I feel like I'm running out of ideas. If I have to say something every day,
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have something smart to say after a month. Like how relevant can you continue being? How much do you have to say? And I don't know, maybe I'm overcomplicating it.
I think if this is part of your business model, then you have to get outside help and decrease the friction and take it off of you, because if you want to be, I don't know, I don't have the discipline, and I don't want to. That's the thing. I don't want to post every day. I know that creating a brand online is important because I live with someone that does that for a living, and I see the results, and I was like, oh, damn, I need to do this, or because this is a really low hanging fruit. So I see the need. This for me is fun, so I do this because it's fun and I want to do it, but I don't want to get on my phone and post. So I have to get that to somebody else.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a victim.
You're not allowed.
I don't want to be attached to my phone all day.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. These are you're both articulating common themes, and I would just say for the first question about how do I do this when I'm 2.5 months in and I'm like, okay, what am I going to talk about today? That's a real problem when you find yourself there. And I think there are different ways that this can be done when you're working through this in a thoughtful process. And some ways are that you have more than one kind of content. So you've different, behind the scenes, just clips of you doing whatever with a little bit of music that says POV, vascular surgeon. There are so many different ways that you can sort of get through having enough stuff to put out there. But ultimately, I've seen that it comes down to batching. And so maybe you record just a ton of stuff throughout 1 week, and then you have that. So you may use the 30 seconds of you making your coffee, or probably like 0.3 seconds, but you may use a cut of this, a cut of that in multiple videos, and nobody's going to care if they notice. Most people won't notice. But also, once you start to batch stuff and you get into a habit, the friction of like figuring out what I'm going to have to do today is so much easier, because the lift either doesn't feel as heavy, or you already are like, I don't feel like doing anything today. I'm just going to pluck from here and drop that in there, or whoever's doing it for you. I think, Lucas, you both have mentioned the not wanting to, or the, really not wanting to be on my phone, posting stuff, interacting stuff. There are 2 types of folks that are sort of interested in building their brand online, and they fall into this camp, and then the other camp of people that like want to build a community and engage. And I think that there is space for both personalities out there. Like the personality where someone tells you what to do, you do it, and then they take it and package it up and put it out there. And then for the other people that enjoy being on social, I'm obviously in camp number 2, because it's professionally given me all sorts of grand rounds opportunities, speaking opportunities, clients that like I never would have guessed because of the conversations that it then leads to. And so I've never wanted to give up those conversations, but you are both speaking to a common desire that many folks I work with have said, where, look, I'm too busy. I don't want to be dealing with this. Can you just do it for me? And that's yes, that's a strong desire.
Isn't that in a way a recipe for an unsuccessful brand creation, when you're essentially pushing it on somebody else to do the lift for you, and all you do is put your not so pretty face on and then have somebody do? I don't know. I feel like if you're serious about brand creation and you seriously see the benefit, you have to be part of the interactive process. I don't know. Am I wrong to say that, or do you think that there is success in this sort of personality where he's like, well, I want somebody to do it for me. I don't want to be involved. I don't want to be on my phone. I don't want to post. I don't want to interact. It seems like it creates an island from what you're trying to do. Well, why do you want a brand if you don't want people to actually interact with you?
Right, like form a parasocial odd relationship with your. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you're laying out is certainly gets to my bias of being more involved with it.
Right.
But setting goals up front, not everyone's going to have the same goals. So I really value forming connections, forming friendships, all of those things, like fellowship, not in like the sense of like doing a fellowship, but like that sort of like bond that you form with people. And that's something that's always been part of my goals up front. Someone else might say, look, I just want to get my name out there so it's like a recognizable name. I don't really care if I meet anybody through this. Then that's the person that I think is a better fit for a completely hands-off or almost completely hands-off approach.
Yeah, I think that again, it's what you said. It's like what you want out of it. It's still better than nothing. It's
That's
still
true.
it's way. It's like
That's
it's
100%
like
true.
10x better than nothing. So
What do you think are? I would say probably under 1% of physicians have invested in brand recognition.
yeah, 1,000%.
It has to be under the 1% mark.
Yeah, and the ones that do it very poorly. Like for like if you have your own practice somewhere, you hire like some web designer that and like.
Yeah, well, I don't even think that's brand recognition.
I know, but it may be part of it.
Yeah, maybe some people have invested in practice development stuff, but that's not what I'm saying. Is I think every doctor should have their own landing page, should have their own creation of a name, because here's what I can tell you now in retrospect. If I could go back in time and talk to Miguel Montero Baker Young, I'd say, A, put some money on Amazon.
Buy Bitcoin.
Buy Bitcoin. And B is whoever you work with, create an independent island of yourself, because it is the only thing that you keep.
Yeah.
When you leave these jobs that annihilate you, that use you and spit you out, and your name gets removed from that door where you put millions of hours of work like nothing, and then some other name comes up.
Yeah.
The only thing you take is what you've built through the years.
Yeah.
And funny enough is patients will follow you like cats. I changed institutions like 3 times, like in 2 years. And there's like 2 or 3 people that somehow are like, you try to run away from it, but I found you, sir. And it's like this like double amputee, which I'm like, you're a double amputee, man. I can't offer you anything more. Like, and then this guy's like, oh, I come from my carotids, whatever that is. But they keep coming back, and it's amazing because they love me. They have this great relationship, and I'm part of their lives. And that's good. But they had a hard time finding me. They're like, we didn't know where you were. And guess what? Baylor sends a letter that says I died, essentially. It was like, unfortunately, we will not have Dr. Montero with us anymore.
Yeah.
And so literally a patient thought I died. And then the other, and the Texas board has some things that they have to apply. And so they'll put a sign in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like under a toilet that says, here's the new address where you can find him.
Yeah.
But it's obscure. And so even for that, guys, you're going to change careers and paths and jobs multiple times. Let your patients have a way to find you
for sure,
wherever it is that you go.
Yeah.
Because today you're at Dell, but tomorrow we don't know.
Yeah.
You may go to Stanford, or who knows that. But there's people that are going to want to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
There's professional people
Miguel,
that want to know what you're doing. Yeah.
I would be irresponsible if I didn't say that you need to get their email addresses so you have like a personal list, like a newsletter or whatever, but something where you own their contact information to fully realize what you're describing. Because if you have a massive social following on whatever platform du jour, but that's the only way that you have community, then what you're describing still isn't a guarantee. Once you have a newsletter or something where people have like interacted with you and you have a way to contact them, then that circle is totally complete.
That could be super interesting that could be super interesting to discuss with a lawyer, because part of your exit from all these big institutions, as you both know, is there's going to be a non-solicitation clause. So you can't solicit your patient. Two things: you can't solicit patients, and you can't solicit staff. So I can't leave. Like, if you have this perfect nurse that you love, that you're like, I'm taking you, you can post the job and then tell somebody to tell her to look at it and post and come to you, but you can't email her or text her and say, I want you to come and work with me. You should come. You can't do that. So you can't solicit her. And patients, if the patient asks, where did Montero go? They're supposed to say where I went.
Yeah.
But I can't go and be like, hey, I want you guys to come with me.
Yeah.
It's a very fine line there, but you have to. So I'd be curious to see, well, if you have a brand and they have your newsletter, are you soliciting if in your newsletter you say that you're moving job? Like, that could be an interesting conversation.
What if you just say I'm alive? Hey, I didn't die.
Yeah.
Then they'll know.
I'm still around the living.
All right.
Yes.
I'm still here.
And with I'm alive, I'm still here, we're going to cut it off.
Yeah. I mean, guys, if anybody out there is interested, I don't know how much bandwidth David has, but I think you
just
should
flood his email.
Flood this guy.
Flood his email.
Text him, email him, connect with him. We'll put all the details on the show notes, but you need to alter ego your ass right now and start working on your brand name.
Your ass,
Yeah, alter ego your ass right now with David. He's going to kill it for you, and he's going to make your life much better. Is that safe to say?
That sounds awesome.
Perfect.
David, thank you very much for your time. I know it's a weekend. We're going to give you all.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
it
was fun. It was nice connecting with you again, man. For sure.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah,
you too. Hopefully, next time it's in person eventually.
Yeah, come to Austin. I'll go to wherever, San Francisco or something. Yeah,
awesome.
That's something that I hate. Like, I feel now it's kind of cool to say Austin.
Yeah, I know.
Fuck, because
it's the Austin privilege.
Yeah.
Nobody says come to Houston.
JCal move. There's a bunch of Silicon Valley people coming to Austin. There's all these hippies from California now coming in here.
Yeah, but come to Houston, get some cancer.
Come to Austin one of these days. And people are like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
But if I'm like, hey, you should come to Houston, man. Everyone's like, no, that's fine.
Crickets.
Although we have phenomenal food, I'll say that.
Yes, you do. Amazing food.
You do.
Really
you do.
Food scene. Really, we're in the top 3.
Yeah, that's it
in America.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's big. All right, David, have a beautiful afternoon, and we'll be in touch. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.